Hello there, welcome back to the Chap's Guide. My name is Ash and I am your host on this journey through men's style, self-development and personal grooming. Now today, you've seen the thumbnail, this is how to walk like James Bond. Because walking with purpose is not just about getting from point A to point B in as easy and as swift fashion as you can. The way that you walk projects to the world something about you. It says to the world the type of man that you are and how you tackle the world and how it unfolds in front of you. Now, women are much better than this. They understand the value of walking with poise and bearing. Perhaps it's because they have to walk in much more difficult shoes than gentlemen. But women know that if they walk in a certain way, it shows off the best version of themselves to the world. Now, when it comes to the way that gentlemen walk, we often use James Bond as our exemplar, as a man who has courage, passion, and a strength of character which comes across simply in his appearance. Now, let's take the first ever James Bond. It has been said, and I know if there isn't any veracity to this, but it has been said that Sean Connery was able to secure the role as the first ever James Bond through his walk. And let's be truthful, Connery was something of a journeyman actor. He was in his early 30s. And when he was interviewed for the role, which incidentally, they were struggling to fill the position of James Bond. It was a new entity at the time. They'd offered it to Cary Grant, who was a little bit long in the tooth at the time. And he was unprepared to commit to, a multi-film deal. So they disregarded him. And it came down to this relatively unknown journeyman actor, Sean Connery. Now, when the two producers, Cubby Broccoli and Harry Saltzman, interviewed him numerous times for the role, they were a bit unimpressed because he was a large, rough Scotsman from Edinburgh. He had quite a pronounced Scottish accent. He had a receding hairline. And they made reference to the fact that he was something of an unpolished man. He was yet to achieve the status of gentleman, which is really what they were looking for. James Bond is portrayed as a gentleman in the literary Bond novels. However, one day they'd interviewed him at a meeting in their office, and Broccoli and Saltzman watched from the window of their office as Connery walked away after their meeting. And they noted, and it's been widely quoted, they saw as he glided across the street, and one of them said, he walks like a panther. And when they saw that, they knew they had the right man for the job, because they could polish this gem of a man into a diamond because he had the underlying qualities that they wanted in a gentleman. And a lot can be said and interpreted from a man's walk. So today I am going to give you 5 tips on how you can walk with poise and bearing and show the world that you can move with purpose. Maybe not like a panther, but certainly with poise and bearing. Now, my first tip for you in how to walk with purpose is nothing to do with walking. Before you take a single step, you need to cultivate a mindset of confidence, because when you do that, your confidence will be displayed for the world in the way that you move. When we think about James Bond as a character, when he walks into a room, walks into an office, a bar, he walks into that location as if he owns the place. Such is his level of confidence. Now, in his case, his confidence is derived from the fact that he is ultimately self-assured in his abilities. He knows, because of his training, his background, that whatever happens in that room, he can handle it. He has the qualities to deal with any situation. And that comes across in the way that he projects himself into a room with confidence and bearing. Now, a couple of ways we can cultivate that confidence in our mind is before we enter a room. Maybe you're going into a meeting at work. Maybe you're going to present a project idea to co-workers, or whatever the situation may be. You might be about to get married and you're about to walk into the church. Cultivate a mindset of success. visualize what's going to happen in that room and imagine yourself destroying it. You go in there and you absolutely smash it. Success from the moment you walk in. And if you can visualize success, quite often the body follows the mind. You walk in there and you will be confident. You will stride with aplomb and confidence into that situation. People will see it and they will be convinced that you are the person you are projecting to them in the way that you enter that room, as if you own the place. And it doesn't harm, a second little tip, is to give yourself a few positive affirmations. Before you walk into that room, as you're visualizing success, just say to yourself, you've got this, you're going to do this, I'm going to go in here and smash it. Because these little cues to yourself, as I say, sometimes we get held back by things like, what do they call it, the inner dialogue, which says to you, no you can't, you're not good enough. You can turn that dialogue around by a few positive affirmations. Just say to yourself, you've got this, buddy, get in there and show them you can do it. And your body will follow your mindset. You'll walk in there as if you own the place, just like James Bond. Now, my next tip for you is to master the posture if you want to walk like Bond, because his posture is always impeccable. He stands straight, but not stiff. He is relaxed, yet alert at the same time. Adopting good posture to the way that you stand and the way that you walk is actually good for body health, but it also projects an air of authority. It tells people you are self-assured in the way that you carry yourself. And it's true to say that nobody can respect a person who walks with slouched shoulders, who's looking down at the ground as they walk along. It really doesn't give anybody confidence in your abilities. You're not projecting an air of authority if you walk in such a manner. What you need to do is stand tall in the way that you approach your journey through life. Stand up straight. Your shoulders slightly drawn back, your arms down to the sides naturally, your hands relaxed, not clenched, you're kind of relaxed, but with some poise about you. Always keep the shoulders slightly drawn backwards, which makes the chest open. In simple terms, you're putting it out front, you're showing the world, my chest is leading me. I am not being led by slouched shoulders sort of ambling along. I am in charge of the situation as I walk towards my destination, whatever that may be. And engage the core. Slightly tense and hold your stomach muscles, because this keeps your spine straight. It keeps your body in the posture that you wish to demonstrate to the world as they see you making your way to wherever you're going. Now, the next thing you want to do is control the pace as you go about your journey. Your pace conveys to the world around you a lot about your state of mind. You will notice that James Bond doesn't hurry anywhere. He actually walks at a calm, measured and deliberate pace. And this is because he is in control of his surroundings. He knows what's going on. He is a deliberate man going about deliberate business, and that allows him to walk at his own pace. Now, a few tips for you. Walk with intention. Each step you take should be purposeful. Don't drag your feet, don't shuffle. Walk with intention to where you're going. And secondly, moderate your speed. Don't dawdle. Don't rush either. Try and hit that middle ground. It shows that you are intentional, not desperate to get somewhere or desperately don't want to get somewhere. Moderate your speed. I learned this quite early on in my professional life. I used to be a police officer and I used to work on cases which often led to me going into Crown Court. And obviously going into an environment like that, it's quite nerve-inducing. Nobody really enjoys going into a courtroom, standing in the witness box and having to give evidence. And I realized quite early on that from my point of view, as an investigator entering a room to give evidence about something, there was quite a lot of theatre involved in the way that I entered the room and presented my evidence. And I realized that actually from opening the door to getting to the witness box was the first time the jurors and the judge ever saw me. and they drew an impression about the way that I moved, the way that I walked. Now, I've got to say, I don't think I walked like a panther, but I certainly made sure that from the moment that I entered their line of sight until I stood in the box, that they only ever saw the best version of me, with my back straight, shoulders drawn back, and I moved with absolute intention, a little bit slower, a little bit more deliberate than most nervous people who would actually scurry in, get into the witness box and want to get out as quickly as they could. I made it clear to people, this was no big deal for me. I do this all the time, and I am happy and confident to do so. And I demonstrated that by the way I sauntered up to the box to give my evidence. Now, inside, of course, I was shaking like a leaf. It's a really tense situation. However, what I showed the world was something very different. And you can do that too, if you walk with intention. Now, when you're moving with intention, you can give the impression of gliding along, a bit like those languorous movements of a panther, by making no unnecessary movements of your hands. James Bond is smooth and efficient in his movements. There are no extraneous movements of the hands, and you can also do that by quite simply thinking about keeping your arms relaxed down to the sides of your body. Let them hang naturally. And like I said, hands open in a natural fashion. If you're all hunched and clenched, it's going to come across. So just kind of adopt a natural stance. And a very important thing, no fidgeting. People who are a little nervous are constantly playing with their clothes, getting their phone out of their pocket, and doing anything which distracts attention away from them. They're always checking their tie, making sure, they're always fidgeting. Keep extraneous movements to an absolute minimum. No fidgeting. Less is more when you're trying to portray this image of authority and power to other people. And finally, now you knew this was coming, it is all about dressing the part. Because if you're going somewhere where you know people are going to study you, are going to look at you and draw an impression from you, the very least you can do is look as if you've dressed with intention for the day. Now, I'm not saying in any way that your clothing is the most important thing about the way you look. Clothes do not make the man, but what they actually do is give a strong impression of you to people who've never seen you before. So the very least you can do is dress right for this situation that we're going into. Firstly, and when it comes to your movements at least, make sure you're wearing clothes which fit you well. Because if your suit is exceptionally tight, or exceptionally baggy for that matter, and I'm not just saying a suit, whatever clothing you're wearing, it's not going to ease natural movement. I see young chaps these days wearing suits which are incredibly tight, very closely cut to the body, so that you can't raise your arm easily. If you had to run up a flight of stairs, it would be awkward because the trousers, what do they call them, nut crushers, they are so tight, they inhibit natural movement. So get clothes which are comfortable and easy to move in at the very least. And finally, it has to end here, doesn't it? Your shoes. If you're wearing nice shoes which are comfortable, which are polished, and actually, if they're leather soled, when they strike the ground, there's a definitive sound as your shoe hits the ground. It actually gives a bit of theatre to the way that you walk. So choosing your shoes actually does make a big difference to the way that you move along the ground, like a panther, if you will, like Sean Connery. It worked for him. It made him one of the most successful and wealthy and well-vaulted actors in all of Hollywood history when we look back on his career now. But all of that could have been for naught if he didn't have the walk, which actually was enough to tip the balance and got him selected as James Bond. Now, if you apply some of the ideas and tips which I've given you today, I'm sure it will help you in actually walking with purpose in your life. So, hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, like it, subscribe for more. Drop me a question, either in the comments section or an email. I'd love to hear from you. And I might even make your question and my answer into a future video. If you'd like to support this channel, you can do so by buying me a coffee, or you can even become a patron. I make extra videos for my patrons, and those guys, well, They're like family to me. And if you want to get in on that, the links are in the show notes below. So until the next time, walk with purpose, and I'll see you again very soon.